Have you ever asked yourself why students fail in mathematics? Sometimes it's not because mathematics is hard, but it's because of how it is represented, or how it was represented or presented to you. Oh, let me say presented to you. Okay. So when you look at the results, they are not usually very impressive for most of the students in mathematics. And for that reason, therefore, I decide that I'm going to break it down for you. And for that reason, I have come up with an amazing work, organization, on how you can be able to beat everyone in mathematics and become the best. How to elevate from that B to that C, from that C to that B, all the way to the best grade, and you can't even believe it. This is based on experience. These methods have been tested and proven to work for the students I've been teaching for several years. That to me, I've been taught for over 10 years now. I know the game. And when you know the game, playing the game becomes easy. So I understand the rule of the game. And without wasting time, today I want to start by kicking off by giving you the first tutorial or revision of mathematics. This applies for those students who are doing the Kenyan education system, the 844. Maths is usually tested in 2 papers. So in every particular tutorial, the topics I will be discussing, I will be letting you to understand which paper you expect kind of a particular topic. For that reason, today, I want to start with the simplest. I know the game, and sometimes I tell students, you don't pass because you know everything. You pass because what you know it better. So I want you from today to change your mentality from I will pass because I know everything to I will pass because what I know it better. I'm here to make sure that what you know it better. Showing you the best ways and the best approaches on how to handle these kind of questions. So in that case, we're going to have our first tutorial on this particular simple topic. BODMAS. Have you ever known that BODMAS will always be tested in any particular paper one you're going to sit on? But now, what your teachers have never told you is that BODMAS is tested in 3 particular areas: integers, fractions, and decimals. So I want you to understand that integers, or rather BODMAS, can be either in integers, fractions, or decimals. And also understand that now is you to be able to know how to handle those kind of questions. And for that reason, I'm going to start today by checking on what we call integers. So let's start by looking at integers. And then you see what happens with integers. What kind of questions do I expect when I'm expecting a question concerning this particular area? So I want you to write clear integers. These questions, remember, the examiner requires you to evaluate without use of mathematical tables. Evaluation in this particular topic, evaluation is without use of tables or calculator. When you see this question and you are running to your calculator, please stop, because you're already making a mistake. But I want you to understand the fact that you are not told don't use a math table or calculator does not mean you don't touch your calculator. It only means that all the procedures, all the methods must be clear. And for that reason, I want to start by looking at the first example so that we see what kind of questions are these. So example number 1. So in our example number 1, we are going to look at this particular question. I said in these particular questions, we usually evaluate without use of mathematical table or calculator. For that reason, I am giving this one as my first question. Evaluate, without using mathematical table, without using math table or a calculator. So that we save time. For the other questions, we'll have the same kind of instructions, and therefore I just be writing the question in the numerical part. For that case, the first question here, I can just call it example 1, and this is going to be 5 multiplied by 6. We had negative 76. All this one we divide by 4 plus 27 divided by 3. All these we divide by negative 5 divided by 3 multiplied by negative 4, but that one is a closing bracket. This question in most cases is going to be 3 marks, and therefore we're going to handle this with the solution. So the first thing you do, and this is something I advise most students to make sure that they do that, because some students will just get the question and they start doing without knowing exactly what's supposed to be done. So when you get this kind of a question, what I expect you to do is I encourage my students to separate, work on the numerator alone. I'll avoid mixing the numerator and denominator working at the same time. Just work numerator alone. This enables you to be able to identify the mistakes easily. And for that reason, get the numerator. Our numerator we have 5 times 6 plus, that is negative 76, divided by 4 plus 27 divided by 3. And then from that perspective, we can start solving the question. Remember, we are applying BODMAS. BODMAS means brackets of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So for that case, we start by looking at brackets. I think this is one thing most of the students confuse. The word bracket here means, or we open brackets in the sense when there are two operations in between the brackets. In this case, this might not be treated as bracket for that case, because basically what we have here, the brackets are used here to mean that 76 is to a negative 7. For that case, is a negative. So for that case, you realize that this, look at the question, we're going to start with the division, which is here. There's some other division here, and then this multiplication does not affect the others. And for that reason, if it doesn't affect, you can operate it without a problem. So when you take 5 and multiply by 6, this gives you 30. Then we have plus. I still insist you consider using your brackets and use them appropriately. So if I take negative 76, I divide by 4, that's going to be negative 19. So this one is going to be negative 19. And then plus that, I have plus 27, I divide by 3, I'm going to get 9. So that's the first step. The next step, you look at what other sign. So we can now open these brackets, and this basically becomes 30 minus 19. Why minus 19? Because negative terms are positive. Basically, is going to give you a negative, then plus 9. And then from that, we can operate. This is added to this. We read signs from the number, before the number. The sign before the number is what tells us what is the sign of that particular number. So for that case, this is the same as saying 30 plus 9, then you subtract 19. If I add these two, this is going to give me that 9. Then that 9 you subtract 19. And this one gives you 20. That is the answer for the numerator. And once you are done with that, you go to the denominator. Ensure that always your mathematics work is well arranged. That is very important because it helps you to identify mistakes. So we go to the denominator. Our denominator here was given as negative 5. So you write here negative 5, closing the brackets, divided by 3, multiplied by negative 4. So for that reason, when you look at that, still applying BODMAS, you realize that there is division here, there is multiplication. So in that case, as I told you, this we don't treat this as brackets. We just treat that one as a number negative 5. Because sometimes you are going to get that it's enclosed, some other time it's not enclosed. So if it's enclosed, they just mean that. So we only have a scenario to open brackets if you have a scenario like this, 2 plus 4 into. This one you can talk of brackets. But if it's not like that, then you just proceed. So in that case now, this particular question, we're going to have negative coming first. So you treat it as integer, so negative 5, you divide by 3. then you multiply by negative 4. So if I do that, negative and negative, we know usually gives us positive. So in that case, this would be 20 divided by 3. You can leave that as your denominator, and you can also write it in improper fraction. I warn, when you are doing this kind of a question, please remember these were integers. So therefore, you cannot change this one to decimals. You leave it as it is, or you simply check this is going to be 6, 2 over 3 for that case. Then now you go to the final stage, and that is you take the numerator, you divide by the denominator. Our numerator, in this case, we got 20, so you write here 20 clearly, divided by our denominator, we got 20 over 3. Now once you get that, you can easily do this. This is the same as saying 20 multiply, divided by 20 over 3 is the same as saying 20 multiplied by the reciprocal. And for that reason, 20 can cancel out with 20, and then your answer will be 3. So now, what is the examiner in this kind of a question looking for? Once you are able to get the numerator correct, this gives you what you call method 1. That is 1 mark for the method. This gives you the second mark for the correct mark. And then we have what you call the accuracy mark for that kind of a work. So, we did not apply calculator, but there is something I want you to know. As long as you are having your calculator, you should not miss this kind of questions for obvious reason. Because once you know the procedure and what needs to be done, you just take your calculator. Then after you have enclosed this one, to get this 30, if I take a calculator for instance, and I want us to be logical here. If I take a calculator, I'm doing this kind of a question, take a calculator, and I'm given 5 times 6, I know I'm supposed to start with this. I take this one, I multiply, I get 30. What's wrong with that? 76 negative divided by 4. You have a calculator in the table, or on the table, and then you miss negative 76 divided by 4. Take a calculator, divide that, you get negative 19. Take your calculator and take 27 divided by 3. You're going to get 9. In other words, do not miss this kind of question. That is basically what I am saying, because you have your calculator with you on your table. And for that reason, that's the simplest way, and the simplest way to be able to handle questions concerning integers. Now, there's something here you need to note if you want to be smart when it comes to integers. And this one is very important for you. Anytime you take a positive, or a multiplication, anytime you take a positive, you multiply by a negative, you should always know that the answer is always negative. Anytime you take a positive, you multiply by a positive, you should always know that the answer is a positive. Anytime you take a negative, you multiply by another negative, you should always know that the answer is going to be positive. Anytime you have a negative followed by a positive, or the other way around, that is positive followed by a negative, the answer will always be negative. And I say vice versa is true for that particular perspective. Anytime you have a negative followed by a negative, this one becomes a positive. Because this simply means negative times a negative. Because if I was to open the brackets here, open brackets means simply multiply what is inside the bracket with what is outside. That is the Riemann language on how to understand what it means by opening the brackets for that perspective. For that reason, I think you find this question basically is a simple question which everybody can be able to get. And for that reason, I want to give you some quick practice question. Quick practice quiz. Concerning that particular area. You will agree with me that this one is a simple area, but you will agree with me that, like in this KCSE exams, you will find that that question was there, but you can agree with me that not all the students are going to miss. So why do students fail despite having simple questions? It's because students tend to concentrate more with the difficult questions which they never get. So what is my philosophy? My philosophy is simple. Understand the simple concept, try the hard concepts. Understand simple concepts, try hard concepts. If you are able to understand all the simple concepts in that particular mathematics paper, you already have your 50. 50 is a fair mark. That's a C plus, and you're good to go. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know what you know and know it better. And if you're able to know it better, you're going to become the best you want to become. And for that reason, therefore, before we end our first tutorial for today, I want to give you some quick questions here, which you can be able to practice and become the best. Because you can always be the best. Question number 1. Remember, what are the instructions? Evaluate without the use of mathematical table or calculator. But what did I tell you? Don't be stupid enough not to touch your calculator. Just make sure that you use it wisely. That is question number 1. Evaluate. I'm not repeating the instructions again. I think you can be able to get that. First question, -2 times 4 plus -6 divided by 3 into brackets 4 plus minus 1 all over 5 of 1 over 4 or 1 over 25 plus 4 over 5 minus 6 divided by 2. 3 marks. That can be your first question. You can be able to try and see what is going to happen. Our second question here, you can also try this. You're given 2 minus into brackets -2 squared plus 6 all over 7 plus 1 minus 4 of 3 plus 3 minus 2 plus 6 all over 1 over 2 squared plus 4 marks. Simple question. Simple questions for your quick practice, for you to be able to see if you'll be able to understand how integers can be operated. And once you're able to know that, you're good to go. I think the biggest problem with us students is we think that we need to do a lot. No? Simple concepts, learn all of them. That's 50%. That's a C plus. And you're good to go. And you'll be able to do the best you can be able to do for yourself. So do not think that you're going to pass simply because you know everything. You're going to do well because what you know it well. Learn simple concepts. Once you're done with that, welcome to our second tutorial. And our second tutorial, we're now going to talk about fractions. So when you meet next, make sure that you're good with integers. Because if you're good with integers, then fraction becomes such a simple topic for you. And that's how learning becomes interesting. Don't make learning look like a problem. It's not a problem. It has never been a problem. Let's make learning mathematics interesting by just doing simple things. We have very small concepts which you can be able to cover within the time frame we have. One concept per day. Understand it. Never forget it. In 2 months, you will be having system concepts in your mind. That's what we are doing in this channel. Before you forget and leave, make sure you handle that. Leave your answer in the comment section. I'll be marking for you. Thank you. I was your host, Mr. Musyoka.